Hey, welcome back to Dogtography. Today we're going to try something new and different. I'm going to take you behind the scenes of a photo shoot of my new fish. These are this tank over here. So I have two betta tanks on my desk. I have captured an award-winning image of my betta over here, which I'm going to show you in a second. And then I'm going to give you all my tips and all my techniques for how you can do this yourself at home. Stay tuned. I'm Andrea Fleury and welcome to Dogtography. My channel is all about how to take better images of your dog and how to create some really super fun memories. I walk you through different tips and tutorials and techniques. I sometimes show you behind the scenes of my professional career as a dog photographer, all while just trying to have some fun and enjoy time with our dogs. So last year, I challenged myself to doing something different photography-wise. I was part of Unleashed Education's Emerge Challenges. So every 2 weeks, they give you a different challenge. I was tasked with the Details Challenge, and I was like, what could I do that's new and different that wasn't something with a dog? Because I knew everyone else would probably be doing something with a dog. And I'm sitting here at my desk where I have these two gorgeous 10-gallon each aquariums. And I was like, man, I wonder if I could do something with my fish. And I was like, how could I do that? Well, I have a macro lens, a 35mm macro lens that I hardly ever use, like never. Not anymore anyway. I used to quite a bit, but I haven't recently. And I certainly hadn't used it for its macro capabilities. So I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm kind of onto something. So then I started YouTubing like how to take photos of my fish, and I couldn't find much at all. I found a couple little tips here and there. And so I developed my own technique, which is kind of hilarious, and I'll show you in a minute. But I wanted to kind of give you some more information about this fish shot that I took. So when I took on the challenge last year to do this video, I set up this little setup on my desk here that I'm going to show you. And I just started banging off photos of Cuddles, the fish. And I didn't know what he was gonna do. I didn't know how to like focus on him properly. I didn't really know what settings I needed, but I just started like practicing and just kind of like going through the motions of doing different things. Now, when I loaded the images onto my computer, I played around with some different crops. I settled on this one crop that I really liked that kind of shows where the fins of his tail meet the abdomen of his body. And I really liked the way he was kind of like positioned at the time, and I kind of skewed the image a little bit, tilted it upright, and I really loved it. So I submitted that image into the challenge. Not only did I make it into the top 10, but I actually won the whole details category with this shot. Now, I remember the critique that the judges gave me, and they said,
yeah, I mean, it's not just like part of a fish, it's like a very carefully constructed and framed part of the most interesting part of this fish.
I think it's very, very good and very
clever. It looks like an oil painting.
You can see this kind of thing like printed massive. I think that would have appeal outside of the owner of this fish.
It's art, it's like commercial.
I really took to heart this part about the image needing to be made into this giant piece of wall art. So guess what I did? So this is my giant piece of artwork. This is actually the largest size that I sell. And I thought it was perfect for right here in my staircase. Even Mortimer Mittens here loves it, right, Morty? And yeah, I decided to go with this like simple black frame and a white mat because I thought it allowed this to just kind of like pop out away from the wall. And my favorite part is like all of these lines in here, they just look like painterly. And I don't know if that's just like the detail of the fish or like what happened in the editing process, but I absolutely love it. It is my favorite image in the whole house. Okay, so the first thing that you're gonna wanna do to prepare for your shoot is to prep your tank. So whatever you're using to contain the fish is what I'm gonna refer to as the tank. I'm just gonna use the tank that he's already in. So if that's the case and that's what you want to do, then you want to clean the glass on the inside and the outside because you're going to be shooting through the glass. You want to make sure that there's no slime or algae on the inside of the glass, and same on the outside. Like mine often has like water drips or something on the outside, so I'm going to clean both the inside and the outside of the glass. And then you're going to want to remove any decorations or decor that you have inside whatever you're using as a tank. So I'm going to take everything out of this one. because I like just a clean black background that allows me to just kind of focus on him and not be distracted by anything else that might get in the frame. I just want this to be photos of him on a black background. You might choose a white background or something completely different. That's totally up to you. I have seen other photographers that do this, choose just like a square tank that's just glass on all sides, and they'll put like a different color piece of paper like on the outside of the tank and the back. It's totally up to you. It's whatever you want it to be. And if you're well adversed in Photoshop, you can always change that color. So it's whatever you want. So this tank already has a black background. It's like black plastic that's in the back of the tank. It's just the back wall. And I quite like it. It works for the purposes of the images that we're going to try to create today. So next step is to compile the gear that you're going to use. So what I'm going to use today is my Canon R5 mirrorless camera with my 35mm macro lens. And what this combination is going to allow me to do is to take high resolution images of that fish, which will allow me to crop in quite a bit on my computer in post-processing to really zoom in quite a bit. So this takes 50 megapixel images, which allows me the ability to crop way in. You might not have that freedom or that flexibility, so it's all just going to kind of depend on the gear that you have and what you want to use and what you want your pictures to look like. I tend to seem to like parts of the fish, not necessarily the whole fish, but I think today I'm going to try and just see if I can get nice pictures of the whole fish, including its eyes and its head and everything. I will point out in this aquarium over here, my fish has some friends. So there's a few snails in the tank. There's also some other little fish. And before anyone gets all up in the comments about this, because I get this question every time I post anything to do with my fish online, is people saying didn't you know that betta fish can't be with other fish, blah, blah, blah. That's totally not true. So you can't put two male bettas in the same tank. That is not good. But they can live very peacefully, and both of my aquariums do, both of my betta fish do. And so I don't know all their technical names, but in this tank here, there's one cardinal and some neons. And then in this tank over here, there's a different species, but they're very small. And the betta chases them around a little bit, but they all cohabitate very well, and they have for a very long time. Lighting. So lighting is really important as well for a few reasons in your aquarium. So I'm just going to use the lights that are in the aquarium. They're right in the hood, in the top lid of the tank. They're LED lights, so I find them to be quite bright. They're set on the white setting, so they're not on a colored setting or anything. And that's it. I don't have a flash. I don't have any external light. I don't need to. So with this camera and the settings that I'm going to show you next, it allows me enough available light. Yes, the fish has to be kind of in the right spot in the aquarium to catch the light properly to show its iridescence and stuff, but that's the way it goes. I have seen people use flashes, external flashes when doing this kind of photography. I don't even own a flash. I'm a natural light photographer. So I haven't tried that, but feel free to play around with it and do what you need to do. The next thing you're gonna need is a blanket, or that's what I use anyway. So the reason why I use a blanket is to put the blanket over the aquarium and over me with my camera. Why? Because I'm trying to eliminate glare off the glass. So this tank has a rounded front, but also depending on your room and what your tank is you might experience glare or reflection off of the front of the glass. It makes it very hard to focus through. So to eliminate that, I know it looks stupid, but it works. So get a blanket that doesn't let in a lot of light, drape it over top of your tank. I put it over top of myself, and voila, no more glare or reflections on the glass. Okay, let's talk about camera settings. So that's the last thing you need to kind of prepare for, is what settings to use on your camera. Now, these might be variable depending on your camera, your lens, your lighting, everything. But here's what I'm gonna try and start with. So when I'm taking pictures of dogs and I'm trying to freeze motion and they're moving quite fast, I am fully manually setting up my camera. So my shutter speed is going to be 1/1250th of a second. And that is what I use to cut and make really sharp action shots. I don't know if it needs to be quite that high at this point to photograph a slower moving fish. I hope I can kind of take it down a little bit because that will just help me let in more light, but we'll see. So I'm gonna use that as a starting point and I will just adjust from there. The aperture, I suggest you have your aperture at whatever the lowest is for your lens. So for me, for my lens, for this one here, I believe it is 1.8. Yes, this is an f1.8 lens. So you want it wide open, which is going to allow the most amount of light coming into your lens possible, which will be great. The ISO is one of the kicker variables here. So you will only be able to have your camera set to a certain shutter speed to like freeze motion, and then you're going to have your aperture wide open. So your variable that I consider it to be is your ISO. So I don't know what that's going to be until I get set up and I start seeing what the light is like, but adjust the ISO. Keep your shutter speed the same, keep the aperture the same, and just kind of play around with your ISO settings to get the right exposure for you. All right, let's do this. I'm having to make a few adjustments to my plan. This fish tends to really love to hang out right at the top of the water and in the corners, which isn't helpful. The good light in this aquarium is like right in the middle. I even tried getting out some of my super bright tube lights here just to add more light to see if that would work, but I can't. I'm really struggling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain half the tank and bring the water level down. This is like the only other different solution would be to put him in a smaller tank, and I don't have a smaller tank, so I'm just going to reduce the amount of area he has to swim in. And even if he only swims at the surface when it's lower, then at least hopefully in theory he's still in the best light in the aquarium. So we're just going to give this a shot and see how it goes. His eye and this part of his fin must be on the same plane, but his body must have been slightly curved, so it's gone out of focus. That's how thin the slice of focus is. It's wild. Man, that's too bad he's not all in focus there, but that's still a super cool shot. Well, here's another thing that's happening. Can you see this like beige stuff here, and then this has caused some distortion in his face? That's a reflection of my hand in the glass. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to reflections. So if I had the blanket on, which I think is what I need to do next, and just do it, is it will cut all of that reflection off. So I've tried taking some images without the blanket on, and I'm definitely getting a reflection back. I wanted to try it because it's super hot with this on and it's very uncomfortable. So I'm gonna put it on because I've now got the water level. I've got him where I want him. He's interested in me. I'm going for it. I'm going under the blanket. So you gotta put it around your tank first. There goes my camera. And then you just put this over your head and away you go. So I'm trying to stand my camera up on these blocks here so I don't have to hold it the whole time. And let's see what I can get with no glare or reflection this time. Bye. Gosh, so there you have it. There is the betta fish photo shoot. Okay, so I just want to address a couple things. Part of photography, a lot of photography of photographing animals, including fish, is you have to have a ton of patience, a bucket full of patience, a room full, house full, universe full, of patience because they're animals and they don't know what the heck is going on. So as much as I tried to kind of lead him with my finger and to get him kind of into that sweet spot in the aquarium where I knew the light was going to hit him right, he just had no interest. He wanted to float at the top, float in the sides, look at himself in his reflection and whatever. So Phoenix and I, like off camera, we tried a bunch of different things to like get him to want to come down, and it just, nothing worked. So what I ended up doing is dropping the water level to like half the aquarium. And that seemed to work quite well because then that got him the sweet spots kind of right in the middle of this aquarium. I also used my external tube lights, which I didn't really think about doing until, again, when I was in it. My camera was really struggling to get focus. And so if your camera is not focusing, there's a couple different variables, the things you want to check. Is your shutter speed right? So is it motion blur that's the problem? My lens just was not focusing. So that to me meant that there was a low light issue, or I had to adjust my aperture. So I did two different things. I increased my aperture so that it had a deeper depth of field to try and grab a hold of the fish and keep it in focus. And I also increased the light. So I brought out those two tube lights, which did die, by the way, halfway through the shoot. So super frustrating in some ways, but this is just part of it. You got to roll with it. You got to pivot. You got to try different things. You got to get creative, get an assistant, get him to help you out, have someone hold the lights, you know, whatever you need to do to like get the job done. I think we got lots of interesting images of my fish who still needs a name. So if you have any name ideas for my fish, why don't you drop them down in the comments below? That would be amazing. I'd love for my fish to be named after someone's YouTube suggestion. I think that would be super cool. And you know, just try and have some fun. Okay, so that sums it up for today. Lots of patience, practice with your focus, change your lighting, pivot when you need to, and have some fun. That's what it's all about really in the end, right? Okay, I will see you next Saturday with another likely dog related video. And until then, go out and make some memories with your pets, with your fish, whoever, and have a great time. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.